When you prepare for the worst, but you hope for the best, it allows you to steer the ship around the fucking crazy storm, or it allows you to get ahead of the storm before the storm comes and knocks your fucking house down. Something kind of interesting that came up. So remember the podcast that we did about how I react to high stress situations where I think of the worst case scenario and then I kind of work backwards. I hope for the best, prepare for the worst. So I had a guy comment in on YouTube, and this is what he wrote.
Commented on that video?
It was like, I think it was a short. It was how I react to high stress scenarios. It was a short, a YouTube short. So he wrote in, and he wrote, "This is what I've been doing my entire life. Turns out this mindset is the first step into depression and anxiety disorder. Please see someone before it manifests. I learned the hard way. It's called catastrophizing."
Okay.
So then I kind of went in and in my best way possible tried to explain to him, I don't look at daily life that way. Maybe that's what he's referring to.
Yeah.
Daily life that way. The thing that I'm referring to is business life.
Right. And
business scenarios. Exactly. And things that come up. Something, geez, give me an example here. I'm drawing a blank.
Health Canada reaches out to you.
Health Canada has a complaint. Prepare for the worst. Make sure all of our ducks are in order. Confirm all of our ducks are in order.
Yep.
If they're not, get them in order immediately, but prepare for the worst. And we make sure that all of the worst case scenarios cannot happen or affect us. So we are preparing for the worst. And I know that causes my brain to go into overdrive, but I feel that because of that reaction that I have, I've had the ability to steer around hurricanes, if for lack of a better analogy. Because if I hadn't prepared for the worst, because I have prepared for the worst before, and the worst has happened.
Right.
If I didn't prepare for the worst, and that worst thing happened, I would have been way behind the curve.
Yeah.
Or way behind being able to get in front of the issue ahead of time. Get what I mean? And that is the key. When you prepare for the worst, but you hope for the best, it allows you to steer the ship around the fucking crazy storm, or it allows you to get ahead of the storm before the storm comes and knocks your fucking house down. You get what I mean? And that's what I've tried to explain to him, and hopefully people understand that when I tell people I prepare, or what is even the topic of that fucking video? What did I actually name it? The video is called
How You Deal with
how I react to high stress scenarios and preparing for the worst. I prepare for the worst. That's why I do it, because it allows me to navigate the worst case scenario in the event the worst case scenario happens. It's a small percentage that the worst case scenario will happen, but in the event it does, I will be ready and I will be prepared to deal with it head on exactly when that fucking worst case scenario pops off. I won't be surprised. It won't cripple me, and I will be mentally prepared in order to deal with it.
And I think that's actually what you just said touches on probably the most important differentiating factor, is that it's not crippling you.
Exactly.
Right? A lot of the times that people in their mind, they're preparing for the worst to happen, that then overwhelms them to the point that they're not doing fucking anything. They're just right.
Yep.
But whereas you might feel the anxiety, right? But what you use it, and you're like, okay, let's actually prepare for every possible fucking thing. You don't feel the anxiety, and you're like, oh shit, what's gonna happen?
No,
and just like fucking sit in your office and just cry. Like,
no.
You're actually like being proactive,
100%,
and thinking through everything.
Yeah.
But also, like, one of the most lucrative aspects of any business operation is the the legal side of it.
Yeah.
Right. In the preparation of essentially your contracts or legal documents. We've seen over the past couple of years how important it is to cover every single possible fucking bad situation that can happen before entering even into a business, any kind of business operation, agreement, whatever it is. And that's literally why contracts exist in the first place. They cover all of those things that like can go to shit.
Yeah. And what's weird too is you do this on a daily basis. You simply don't realize it. You're literally preparing for the worst anytime you go into contract with anything. You are preparing for the worst. Those are what our conditions are called. You are preparing for the worst. And I think it's prudent for any kind of business owner, entrepreneur, executive, manager, or whatever to take this type of mindset and deploy it into whatever scenario that you're working in. I'm not saying that you should everyday life look at life that way. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when shit pops off, be prepared for the worst and hope for the best, because the majority of times that scenario will land somewhere in the middle. It's not going to be fucking, fairies and rainbows or whatever the fuck, but it's not going to be the worst case scenario. So it's going to land in the middle. But in the event it does fucking happen where it's the worst possible case scenario, number one, you had enough time to digest the worst case scenario. You've come to terms with the worst case scenario, and you've also had enough. You've had enough time to theorize and come up with some sort of navigatable solution to dealing with that worst case scenario, so that when it happens, you're not then dealing with it. You've already gone through the scenarios in your mind on how to deal with it and prepped for it so that you can address it without wasting any time. And a lot of times what happens is when you have a bad case, when you have the worst case scenario popping off, the longer that worst case scenario isn't addressed, the worse it gets. So if you can shorten that time frame of having to deal with it and having to wrap your mind around it and having to theorize solutions for addressing it, the better off you'll be, and the less time you'll spend probably trying to fix that worst case scenario.